Okay, so let's just jump right in. We're about to look at a framework that suggests the solution to some of biology's absolute deadliest problems isn't some new chemical or a fancy new drug, but a shape. Yeah, a simple, fundamental geometry that, as it turns out, nature uses for pretty much everything.
So you've probably seen the shirk wheel, right? It looks kind of like a square, but it rolls like a perfect sine wave, and it definitely grabs your attention. But what if I told you that reinventing the wheel wasn't actually the point at all? What if that was just the warm-up act for something way, way bigger? Because here's the thing, the real discovery wasn't the wheel. The real discovery was the geometry behind the wheel. It's this universal principle of how nature moves, how it stays stable, and seriously, once you see it, you start seeing it absolutely everywhere, from turbines to the very code of life itself. So what is this hidden language of nature? Well, it really boils down to three core principles of wave mechanics. And these aren't just some abstract theories. Think of them as the operating instructions for everything we're about to cover.
Okay, first up, alternating weight cancellation. Just imagine two people swimming, creating these messy waves that just crash into each other. It's chaos. But if they swim in perfect sync, their waves can actually cancel each other out, and the water becomes calm. In biology, that means getting the geometry right to stop destructive interference and just halt the damage. Second, amplitude tuning. Think of a healthy heartbeat on a hospital monitor. It's got a specific rhythm, right? A specific wave height or amplitude. When something goes wrong, that wave gets too high or too low. So the solution isn't to blast it with a drug, but to gently tune it back to its correct, healthy amplitude. And finally, toroidal closure. Healthy systems in our body, from DNA to blood cells, are often these closed, stable loops, kind of like a donut or a torus. Disease and decay, that's what happens when these loops break open. So the fix is simple. Restore that closed, self-sustaining shape. You do that, and you lock the system right back into stability.
Now, this is where it gets really mind-bending. What happens when we take these geometric tools and apply them to biology's toughest problems? We're going to look at three kill shots, these moments where applying the principles of cancellation, tuning, and closure gets results that conventional science, with all its chemicals, just can't touch.
First up, cancer. You know, one of the biggest hurdles in treating solid tumors is that their blood supply is a chaotic, tangled mess. It's so inefficient that the tumor's core actually gets starved of oxygen, which ironically makes it incredibly resistant to things like chemotherapy and radiation. So the conventional approach is just to blast that chaos with more and more chemicals, right? Fight fire with fire. But the wave approach is completely different. It asks a totally different question. What if we don't fight the chaos at all? What if, instead, we restore the natural orderly geometry of a healthy blood vessel network? What if we just fix the plumbing? And this is the kill shot. By simply pruning the vessels that violate the natural branching pattern, the whole network just snaps back into its proper, efficient wave geometry. And all of a sudden, the tumor's core gets flooded with oxygen, and its main defense mechanism completely shuts down. That is a perfect example of alternating weight cancellation. You restore the natural geometry, the chaotic signals get canceled out, and the system just goes back to normal. All right, let's move on to our second example, Alzheimer's disease. We all know it's linked to these amyloid plaques, these rigid, nasty protein structures that build up in the brain. The problem is, for years, every single attempt to attack and destroy them has led to this catastrophic, often fatal brain inflammation. It's been just a tragic dead end. So the old way was brute force. Let's just smash the whole structure and hope for the best. The wave approach, though, is so much more elegant. It sees the plaque for what it is, a highly ordered, repeating wave pattern. So instead of a bomb, you use a tuning fork. You introduce a molecule that just gently disrupts the geometric pattern at the very edge of the plaque. And this is just brilliant. That tiny disruption at the edge ripples through the whole structure, and the plaque simply loses its geometric stability and dissolves. No immune attack, no inflammation, no collateral damage. The structure didn't need to be destroyed. Its wave pattern just needed a simple amplitude tuning right at the edge, and poof, it lost its stability. Okay, for our third kill shot, we're going right to the heart of aging itself. Inside our cells, we have mitochondria, these tiny little rotary motors that generate all our energy. The thing is, as we get older, these motors start to overspin, running way faster than they should. And just like an overrevved engine, they start spewing out destructive exhaust, in this case, free radicals that are a primary driver of aging.
So, conventionally, what do? We try to solve this with antioxidants, which is basically just mopping up the mess after the damage is already done. But the wave approach says, hang on, why not just fix the motor? Why not prevent it from overspinning and creating the mess in the first place? It's the difference between treating a symptom and fixing the source by tuning its frequency. And this is the crucial part. By using an agent that basically acts as a frequency cap, you can prevent that mitochondrial motor from ever spinning past its peak efficiency. It doesn't run slower, it just runs right. This is textbook amplitude tuning, correcting the frequency to restore optimal function. The primary source of all that cellular damage is just switched off at the source. So we've seen this in cancer, in neurodegeneration, in aging. But the real test of a truly universal framework is when it starts predicting results in fields it was never, ever designed for. I mean, the shark wheel didn't set out to solve battery technology or quantum physics. And yet, the geometry is there. And the pattern is just undeniable. The exact same principle of wake cancellation that helps a tumor also creates the conditions for absolute zero friction. The same amplitude tuning that dissolves a plaque leads to better battery cathodes. The same toroidal closure that stabilizes our chromosomes is now being found in next-gen magnetic data storage. Look, these aren't just theories anymore. They are part of this growing list of confirmed geometric kill shots across 15 different domains of science. The pattern is literally everywhere.
Which brings us to the ultimate thesis of this entire explainer. The sine wave, this fundamental geometry, it isn't something we impose on nature. It's the shape nature itself uses at every single scale to build stable systems. It's the operating system for reality. And that leaves us with a final, massive thought. For over a century, our model has been all about chemistry. Find the right molecule to fit the right lock. This framework challenges us to shift our entire focus, to stop searching for a million different keys, and instead to finally understand the fundamental geometry of the lock itself.